Do this, not that, plant care edition from somebody that has over 250 houseplants. This Houseplant Care 101 series is sponsored by rePotme.com. With rePotme, you can have all of your houseplant supplies delivered right to your door. They are a one-stop shop for all of your houseplant, orchid, or succulent needs. They have custom handmade houseplant soils ranging from tropical houseplants, cactus and succulents, pothos, snake plants, and more. I cannot live without their clear slotted orchid pots. They have amazing houseplant fertilizers and so much more. I've included their link in my description below, and you can get 10% off any soil with my code Ashley. Houseplants are the absolute best. They bring life and beauty into our homes. Clearly, I love houseplants. Look at me. I'm sitting in my plant room filled with plants, and like I said, I have over 250 of them. But caring for them can be a delicate balance between thriving and struggling. So here are the things that you need to keep in mind. Do this, not that, when it comes to caring for your houseplants. One of the most common mistakes is choosing a plant based solely on its aesthetics and what it looks like instead of its care requirements. You don't want to waste your money on a plant and bring it home and realize you can't take care of it because you can't meet those needs depending on that specific plant. And there are lots of plants that look amazing and very similar, and some are, have harder care requirements and some have a little bit easier. So it is worth either taking a look at the tag at the shop or asking an associate or searching online and choose a plant that you can meet its care requirements in your home. If you have pets or small children, a lot of these houseplants are extremely toxic and poisonous. However, there are some great options out there. So this, not that, instead of getting the toxic plants, go ahead and opt for some non-toxic options. And here are a few for you. Nerve plants or Fittonia, true ferns, Hoyas, Calatheas, Peperomia, ponytail palm, bromeliads, money tree, lipstick plant, orchids. So next up is the biggest mistake, I think, when it comes to houseplant care, and that's having the incorrect soil and just using like a standard potting mix when you're repotting. If you use your standard potting mix that you get without any perlite added or orchid bark, then it's just going to retain too much moisture, and even if you're not giving your plant a lot of water, it'll just retain so much moisture that it's probably going to kill your plant. So what to do instead, do this, not that, is to add some sort of other substrate to your soil mixture. So you can use equal parts potting soil for moisture retention, perlite, pumice, orchid bark, equal parts to your regular potting mix to help encourage drainage. This will help prevent root rot. The other route you can go is a customized soil. So I like to use the RepotMe soils. They have so many different options. I know there are so many people in the plant community that are obsessed with RepotMe soil. This one is their Houseplant and Tropical Classic Potting Mix, and it is incredible. It has all of the stuff that you need in there to help make sure that you're not going to overwater your houseplants. So they have ones, both of these this is a philodendron and this one is an epipremnum or a pothos, and I'm going to be repotting these today and kind of just talking about some this, not that, things to keep in mind when repotting. But I'll be using the Houseplant and Tropical Classic mix, but they do have philodendron and pothos ones as well. Unfortunately, I've run out, but they're the best. So definitely make sure you're using the correct soil, whether you create your own or purchase a customized one. Just don't use your standard potting mix, whatever you do. So that's something that I learned the hard way. I ran out of a really good soil mixture one time, and this was in the early days, and I ended up just using a standard potting mix, and I think I killed off 5 of my plants, which was really disappointing. They all got root rot. And I wasn't even watering them that much, but it was just because the soil was retaining too much moisture. So again, I'm speaking from experience here. Don't make my mistakes. The next one is not repotting your plants. So I will say most plants don't need to be repotted constantly. 1 to 2 years is usually a good time to allow your plant to get acclimated and used to its pot and kind of grow some healthy roots and allow that plant to focus on foliage growth instead of root growth. But there are a number of things that can happen if you don't repot your plant. Even if that pot isn't full of roots, normally what we would look for when it comes to repotting is looking for roots on the bottom, roots on the top, making sure that it's like super, super compact. But sometimes the plant doesn't have a full compact pot of roots, but it still needs to be repotted because it needs fresh soil. You know, if it just has the same soil for so long, then that soil can become hydrophobic. It's not going to retain moisture. It's not going to have enough nutrients. So I would recommend every 1 to 2 years repotting your plants, even if you're using the same size container with some nice fresh soil, because your plant will just appreciate it so much. That's one of the lessons I've learned the hard way, is just waiting too long to repot. So I'm going to go ahead and repot these two plants. This one actually has a plug, so I'll talk a little bit about that. If you don't have somewhere outdoors to do your repotting, I definitely recommend getting some sort of potting mat. I have a cloth fabric one that's okay. This one I much prefer because it's so sturdy. It's not gonna bend and all the soil is gonna fall out. This is from RePotme. I actually found out about this from another planty person, and I was watching a care video because I'm always trying to learn new plant techniques. And I saw that they had this and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I have to get one of those. And it was from RePotme. So it worked out great and I love it. This is called an Epipremnum giganteum variegata, and it's a type of pothos, and the roots look pretty good. It has a lot of excess soil, and you know, I hear mixed things on the plants that are planted with plugs. Many times these plants are propagated in little plugs, and then those plugs are taken and put into soil. And sometimes it can be somewhat of a hindrance to the plant if that plug has some sort of fabric, for lack of a better word. Now, 9 times out of 10, the plug is supposed to allow the roots to penetrate through. Sometimes, you know, it's better in theory than practice, but this one, even though it had a plug, it doesn't have fabric wrapped around the outside, and the roots have grown really well. So I'm very happy to see that. Plugs aren't always a bad thing, so it's just taking a look and seeing how your plant is doing with it. But I'm going to go ahead and repot this one because it actually has a lot of loose soil. So here's another this, not that. Instead of repotting your plant and sizing up every time, or bringing a plant home and letting it sit in a pot with way too much soil, you want to make sure that you repot that plant if that's the case, because if it's sitting in way more soil to roots ratio, then that plant is going to have a much higher chance of becoming way too saturated and dying from root rot and being overwatered, because that soil is just going to retain so much moisture, and the roots are going to be so small in comparison, they're not going to be able to absorb all of that moisture. Using clear nursery pots is a win across the board. They usually have amazing drainage. You want to make sure any pot you use has good drainage, and they're clear so you can see moisture, you can see the roots. That looks like a good amount. So I'm gonna pot this baby up with some well-draining soil. Another this, not that. Instead of taking all of the soil off of the roots and really causing some stress to this plant by messing with the roots too much, it's okay. I am going to be leaving some of this soil on here. The roots look super healthy. I don't see any pests. I don't see any root rot. They're a nice creamy color. So instead of messing with the roots and taking all soil off, I'm going to leave it and just pot it up that way. If we cause a lot of stress to the roots, it may focus on root repair instead of pushing out the beautiful leaves that we love. So, all right, perfect. The plant is potted up. I'm going to do the same thing with my philodendron here. Let's see how these roots look. I do see some roots poking out the bottom, so this one, oh, yeah, this looks great. So again, I'm not going to mess with it too much. The roots look healthy. I don't see any pests. I'm going to loosen it up a little bit to help encourage the roots to grow into the new soil. But to be honest, I find they don't need it too much. They will find their way into the new soil without me messing with the roots too much. So I did get off a lot of the additional loose soil, and I'm going to pot it up. Perfect. So whether you make your own soil or you buy a customized soil, it's worth the investment because again, we're not repotting all the time. We're just repotting every 1 to 2 years. And investing in that really good soil will help prevent root rot and mean a healthy plant moving forward. So in my opinion, it's worth it. Because some of these plants are expensive, you know, you want to make sure you do what you can. Now your well-draining soil will help prevent this next mistake, which is overwatering. And overwatering basically just means leaving your plant sitting in extremely saturated soil. Now if you water your plant from the top, you just want to make sure that it's extremely well draining and that you can see kind of the water flowing out. The other thing you can do is bottom water your plant. It really varies for me whether I top water or bottom water my plants. Both are great. If you do top water and you have your plant sitting in a saucer, just make sure you don't allow that plant to sit in that saucer for any, you know, elongated period of time, because it will cause root rot. So you just want to make sure that you dump out any excess water. Bottom watering is fabulous. It really allows the plant to absorb the water up through the drainage holes, and the roots will kind of go in a downward pointed direction to absorb the moisture. It helps prevent getting water on the leaves, which that can cause issues of itself, fungal, bacterial. So it helps prevent fungus gnats, because usually the top of the soil stays relatively dry, where fungus gnats really enjoy, you know, like a moist surface. So all you do is you take some sort of container like this, you pour water into the container and allow that plant to absorb all that moisture. I'd say let it sit for 45 minutes to an hour. It will depend on the soil. And once that plant has stopped absorbing the moisture, then, you know, that plant has probably absorbed as much as it needs. You can lift the plant up, see if it's heavier to make sure it has absorbed moisture. You also want to make sure that you don't just have a watering schedule, and that every time you water your plant, you check before you add more water, because it will really vary depending on the seasons. So during the summer months, a lot of times we have to water our plants more, and then during the winter months, we need to water our plants less because of the dryness in the air or the humidity that can alter it as well. So, you know, the watering schedule is helpful, but instead of going ahead and watering, just check and see. So this, not that, overwatering, instead take some of these other precautions that will really help. Next up, instead of placing your plant anywhere in your house without considering lighting requirements, try to consider the lighting that your plant needs to thrive. A lot of these tropical houseplants enjoy some bright indirect light. That's what they would be getting in their natural habitat. And basically what that means is near a window, a little bit removed from the window. If they get bright light, it's better that it's morning light instead of afternoon light, because the morning light's less likely to burn the leaves of the plant, because we know they can get a little sunburn from time to time. If you don't have big, huge windows, most of us don't in our homes, try some supplemental lighting. There are so many great options online, inexpensive options. They also have ones that really look like part of your home decor that aren't gonna like blast your eyes out. I have grow lights set up all through my home and my plant room, and honestly my plants would not be thriving without them. So don't be nervous to try out some grow lights and supplemental lighting. Don't neglect pest management. If you bring plants into your home, you're going to experience pests. Now these aren't necessarily pests that are going to be all riddled throughout your home and get on you, but they are pests that will be extremely detrimental to your plants. So the best thing you can do is, one, check at the store. Make sure you don't see any pests on the leaves. Try to check the roots. Two, when you bring that plant home, wash the leaves off. Treat it with maybe some insecticidal soap. Maybe use some systemic granules. There's natural options. Also, wiping those leaves down, washing those leaves off, you know, once a month, once every couple months will also help prevent pests. Prevention is key, but if you do see pests, don't panic. There are lots of great options out there. Another mistake is not quarantining your plant if you do see pests. So sometimes when you bring that plant home, it might be a good idea to quarantine that plant for a week or two, just to make sure there aren't any pests or issues on there, maybe after you've done an introduction to your home treatment. And another thing is, if you do see pests on your plant, Once you've had it for a while, then make sure to remove it from your other plants because you don't want it to contaminate the rest of your plants and spread those pests. And wherever that plant was, make sure to disinfect that area and get rid of any pests that may have dropped off the leaves. So typically what qualifies as a really good houseplant is a plant that's very adaptable to its environment. So it doesn't have to be in its natural habitat. It can survive within our homes. But some of these houseplants do have humidity requirements because they do come from tropical environments. So keep an eye out if you're seeing crisping edges, crisping leaves. You may need to ramp up the humidity in your home, especially during these winter months. So to do that, it's very simple. You can incorporate a humidifier, you can incorporate a pebble tray. There are certain things you can do, but that may be one of the things that's causing any kind of crisping. Now there is somewhat of an adaptive period once you bring your plant home from the nursery or greenhouse, and that again, a lot of these houseplants are great houseplants because they do adapt. So if you see the older leaves are crisping up but the newer leaves are looking okay, then don't worry about it. That plant should be just fine. But if the new leaves are crisping up, you may need to incorporate a humidifier, which not only will be great for your plant, but probably good for you as well, right? We love to have some good humidity, great for our skin and our sinuses and that kind of thing. My advice is, if you are cold, your plants are cold. If you are comfortable, your plants are probably comfortable. So just keep that as a general rule of thumb. A lot of these tropical houseplants like to have moderate temperatures that you would normally have in your home. Now, a lot of them do go dormant, in the winter time. So if you're not seeing new growth in the winter time, no worries. But during the summer months, they should be warm enough that they can put out new growth. And a lot of them actually do enjoy being outside in the summer months. But you got to bring those plants back in if it gets to be, anything that you would find really cold, they're going to find cold, and they can quickly get shocked and die from really cold temperatures. So keep that in mind. That's happened to a lot of us planty people. Again, speaking from experience, we leave our plants out in the summer. We think it's fine. And I don't know about where you live, but here in the Carolinas, it can quickly go from being like 60, 70, 80 degrees to being 30 degrees the next day, especially in the fall, in the spring. And that's like a surefire way to, kill off some of these beautiful houseplants. One of the things I used to do is I'd buy houseplants and then I would never fertilize them, which was such a unfortunate thing for those poor plants. Fortunately, now I have some more confidence and I'm comfortable with fertilizing. So what you want to do is get a fertilizer. If you have cactus and succulents, get one that says cactus and succulents. These are from rePotme. They're great. They also have an organic one that I just ran out of. But any kind of fertilizer will do. If it's for houseplants, get one that says for houseplants, just to keep it simple. And you want to start at half strength and kind of see how your plants respond. And if they respond okay, maybe go to full strength during the summer months. And you only want to fertilize during the growing months. So spring through fall. And your plants will be so grateful. I couldn't believe the difference when I went from not fertilizing my plants at all to fertilizing. I mean, the difference is astounding. But always err on the side of caution. You don't want to over fertilize your houseplants. That's why I always say start at half strength and either remain at half strength or, progress up to full strength, especially in the main growing months, and then kind of decline again, because if you over fertilize, it can burn the roots of your plants. So it's always better to err on the side of caution. Next up, don't be afraid to prune your plants. If you have a plant that has dying leaves, cut them off. If you have a plant that's really long and leggy, trim it down. It will encourage new growth and new stems and new leaves, and your plant will look so much better and be so much healthier if you prune it. So there you have it. Those are some really simple do this, not that techniques to help ensure your success when it comes to caring for your beautiful houseplants. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have in the comments below. Feel free to share any of your tips. We have a very knowledgeable and wonderful plant community here. If you want to see future plant care videos, make sure to subscribe. And a huge thank you again to rePotme for sponsoring this video. I've included their link in my description below, and you can get 10% off any soil with my code Ashley. All right, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Hopefully I get to see you soon. Bye.